Hello, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly. In this video we're talking about wedges. We're talking about the new SM7 range of wedges by Titleist and how the performance differs from the previous generation SM6. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, I was fitted for the previous generation SM6 about a year and a half ago, and it made a really big difference to my game, I'd say. It's the first time I'd been through a really thorough wedge fitting. Got all the data that I needed for all the different pitch shots I'd be hitting from inside about 120 yards, and then hit a series of shots around the green and settled upon a combination of lofts, bounces and grinds that were exactly right for my game. And I would say that my wedge game has probably never been better than it is right now. So when Titleist said they were launching the new SM7, I was really interested to see what they had coming. And I've had the chance to put these two up against each other to see what the differences are. But before I get onto that, just a quick word about some of the technology that they've brought into the new version of this wedge. The first thing to talk about is the centre of gravity. Now, in the previous generation SM6, what the Vokey engineers did was they tried to marry up the centre of gravity locations in the lower lofted wedges, so that when you went, let's say you have a 9-iron in your bag and then you go into a Vokey wedge, that the difference in the flight and the field shouldn't be too noticeable. It should sort of blend seamlessly through from your irons into your wedges, and then those CG locations then progressively change as you get more loft in your hands. Effectively, they've just refined that and made it a little bit better in this version of the wedge. The other thing to talk about is the grooves. Titleist say they've got closer to the groove tolerances in this version of the wedge, essentially offering a little bit more spin. And there's also new grind options. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. If you are interested, have a look at Joel Tadman's fitting video that we did. It really goes into the detail in terms of the different options that are available in the range. I will say that there are 23 different variations, so there's a hell of a lot to choose from, and anyone who's interested should really go through the process with a fitter to make sure they walk away with the right thing. The question I wanted to answer was how much more spin was I going to be able to get by using the new SM7 wedge over my year and a half old SM6.
Right, so you join me in the Foresight Sports studio where we're going to do this spin test. So I have my current stroke old SM6 wedges in the bag. I've given them a bit of a clean up. This is the 50. And I'm going to test them up against their exact same corresponding wedge from 2018. So this is my SM6 50 degree. This is the new one, which I'm going to unravel now. Sorry for the shaky camera work. There it is, 50. And just to prove it's never been hit, hopefully you can see that wedge face is pretty clean. I've also cleaned up the wedge face of my old 50 degree, and actually it's probably the wedge I use least out on the golf course. I probably do hit it maybe at the range a fraction more, so hard range balls, maybe that's taken a bit of spin off, I don't know. Let's find out. I'm also going to test my 58 up against the new 58 and see what the differences are in spin between them.
Okay, so let's take a look at the numbers. I started by hitting shots with the two 58 degree wedges, the SM6 and the SM7, and as you'd expect, there is a drop off in spin with the old generation, about 200 RPMs. Now, that number didn't really mean a lot to me when just looking at it on the launch monitor. It was when I was out here on the golf course and hitting shots for real that you notice the actual difference that 200 RPMs makes. That's on full shots, and the peak height, also I should say, of the SM7 was a little bit higher, so you are getting a little bit of extra stopping power with that. Now, some of that will be down to the way in which the Titleist engineers have worked the new wedges, but a lot of that is down to the sort of natural spin decay that happens over the course of a year and a half. I was quite surprised actually to see how different the spin profile was between the previous generation SM6 and the new generation SM7. Now, I hit that 58 degree wedge quite a lot. You know, every time I'm in a bunker I hit it, and it's like sandblasting the face of the wedge. You are going to get a natural element of degradation. of the spin. Even though Titleist heat treat the faces of their wedges to try and preserve spin as much as they can, effectively you can't do anything to stop that natural degradation. And when I was hitting shots both on the launch monitor and out here on the golf course, it was really clear to see that. So then I hit shots with the two 50-degree wedges, and actually the SM6 spun a fraction more. The peak height was a little higher with the SM7, so I'd say the overall stopping power was very similar between them. Now I'll qualify that as well by saying that the 50-degree wedge is probably the one I use the least. I'll hit it when I have 120 yards or so to go to the flag, but other than that I don't tend to use it for chip shots or bunker shots around the green. And it's good to see that the spin profile of the previous generation SM6 still stacks up against the new generation of the SM7. Finally, I hit some half shots with both the 58-degree wedges. And this was an interesting one to do. Now, I will qualify what I'm about to say by saying that it's very difficult. I'm a 5 handicapper, I'm not a pro, I'm certainly not a robot. Getting the swing speed and the ball speed the same and the overall distance the same for a half shot. But I was trying to hit the ball carry the ball around about the 60-yard mark. And that's where the biggest difference in spin actually was visible. So look at those spin numbers. So in the new generation SM7, I was getting 600 more RPMs of spin than in the previous generation. For a half shot, the ball's also flying a little bit higher, and the overall result of that was more stopping power. It's something that I noticed when we were obviously hitting balls and you get the data back on the launch monitor, but really noticed when I was out here hitting shots on the golf course. So there you have it, the spin test really showing just how much spin I was giving up by using wedges that were a year and a half old. Having had the chance to hit both the old version and now the new version, I'd say that the performance hasn't been changed drastically by Titleist. The previous generation SM6 for me was a really big leap forward. They had some great technology in there. The wedges, of course, looked absolutely fantastic. They were never going to make big wholesale changes with the new generation SM7. I've put them straight into the golf bag and they sort of fit nicely where they previously were. The distances are all very similar and they play all very similar. The difference for me was in spin, and the majority of that I think is down to the fact that the SM6s for me are now a year and a half old. They've been in my bag and they've lost a little bit of spin, and you can see the difference in performance. One thing I would say is that if you are tempted by investing in new wedges this year, and whether it's Titleist or it's a different brand, make sure that you go through the process of a full and thorough custom fitting. It's amazing that a lot of people will get fitted for their driver and their irons, but they won't go through the same process with the wedges. But the wedges are your scoring clubs, and it's made a huge difference to me having properly custom fit wedges in my bag over the last year. And that confidence I think that you get from knowing that the sole grinds are right for your technique can pay dividends. They certainly have in my game. Guys, thank you for watching. Let us know what you think. Are you interested in investing in the new SM7? What do you think about the looks? What do you think about that black wedge that they've got in the range? I think it looks absolutely stunning. It has that very stealth-like look to it. Tell us what you think. But from here, for now, it's goodbye.